Hello and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I am Gugulethu Cele. Now tonight we're going to talk about a trend and technology that is certainly taking over the world of financial advice, Robo-Advice. Should you be considering this in the future, and how does it impact you and the consultations you have with your financial advisor? Well, to tell us more, I'm joined by Alex Cook, the Chief Executive of GCI Consulting. Good to have you with us as always, Alex.
Good to be with you.
Let's pick up on this theme regarding Robo-Advice. I think it is something of the future, and many of us don't actually know that it exists now. But what is it, how does it work, and how does it impact on consumers?
It's actually here already. I mean, we'll talk about what it is now, but it represents about 0.5% of the US assets under management already.
Sure.
It's set to grow to about 2020 to about 5% of assets. It's enormous. What is it? It's really where a machine takes the place of an advisor. So instead of sitting face to face, speaking to someone, you'll be sitting in front of your computer, typing in the details as to what you want to achieve and when you want to achieve that by, and then spits out a portfolio and says, this is what you need to invest. Now from there it breaks down. From there it breaks down to different robo-advice models do different things. Some actually execute for you, where they place the trades for you. Some simply tell you. I mean, if you go to our website, you'll see a very simple portfolio builder, which tells you what you should be investing in. It doesn't actually do it for you though. So it can mean many things.
It sounds like we're talking about the future here, but for the ordinary consumer and investor like myself, doesn't this take the personal touch out of things for a moment, where perhaps algorithms are just calculated and I just get the best fit without understanding my unique needs? And is that still something that might be a priority?
Completely agree with you. I mean, last year we went to various countries around the world. We went to New York, San Francisco, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, London, just to look and see what they're doing. And we actually spoke to some of these robo-advice platforms there, see what they're doing that we're not and how we can improve on things. And what we came back with is that it's probably going to end up being a combination of the two, where you're going to use the best of the machine world as well as an advisor. Because people don't do things without a coach. I mean, you might have the best tennis racket in the world, the best tennis balls and best court in the world. Doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be a good tennis player.
True. Without
a coach. So the tools might be there, and the tools do exist, at least abroad. We don't believe they exist here yet. However, you still need the coach side of financial planning.
Exactly. Having said that though, what does this mean for someone who might have a long-standing relationship with a certified financial planner? Could that be placed in jeopardy now by the robo-advisor?
Well, we've got to look at another reason why these have come into force so strongly. Because the cost of giving financial advice is going up all the time. So with legislation like RDR and TCF, which is coming into play, many clients are now being disintermediated, where the advisor can't really afford to sit face to face with the client anymore. So robo-advice actually augments their practice and can allow them to service more of the population at a cost-effective basis.
So in a place like South Africa, that would work wonders. But again, the security concerns that we might have with the kind of advice that we're getting from robo-advisors, if I can refer to them as such, what are the unique calculations, or what is the competitive edge, basically, that robo-advisors have over us humans?
So there's cost. And that's one thing they'll shout about time and time again, is it's more cost-effective. The downside is they tend to place you more often than not simply in ETF type portfolios, so tracking type funds.
Which during this kind of market volatility we're seeing might not be a good idea.
It doesn't help you. No, I mean you fall in line with the market. There are various custodians that where some robo-advice platforms actually act as their own custodian, or they have their own custodian, whilst others actually link to another existing platform, existing brokerage.
What about the regulatory perspective here? You did touch on RDRs as well as TCFs. Does this mean that a robot will probably provide me with sufficient advice and will be regulated accordingly?
Some are licensed to be regulated, others are execution only. So the regulator in London is actually trying to encourage a robo-advice to move towards proper advice as opposed to execution only. But it's really in its infancy around the world. Having said that, 0.5% of USA assets is significant.
So it's something that might not kick off here in South Africa yet, but in the pipeline, in the long term, we need to adjust and adapt to. So we still have a bit of time to make sure that it works for us accordingly.
Maybe. I think that it's absolutely essential that we actually get it going though. so we can help more people. The amount of people that are able to retire in this country and indeed around the world safely is quite small. And it boils down to a mathematical formula. So what you probably want to be looking for is a Robo-Advice platform which enables you to get to a safe retirement rather than just giving you a portfolio for a specific need.
Exactly. But how do we minimize market manipulation there too?
Very difficult. Each of these Robo-Advice platforms have their own agenda. One's recently been bought out by a large insurance company in this country, where it wasn't really a Robo-Advice platform. It was more of a reporting software on an aggregate of your accounts, and it is open to manipulation. So just be aware of which Robo-Advice platform you go for.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's come back to the consumer again at home, the individual who might come to you and your representatives at your company to seek some kind of advice from wealth managers or financial planners. If you do start incorporating the Robo-Advice element, how does that necessarily change their financial plan, if at all? Will it change their relationship with the wealth manager that they have? And as you've mentioned, there might be benefits such as decreasing costs.
There may be a benefit by decreasing costs, yes. They will probably also be reported to more often. So they'll be kept more in the loop as to what's happening with their unique financial plan. So it could actually improve the outcome of where they're going to be getting to.
And for the wealth managers of this world and financial planners, does this mean they might be out of a job sometime soon?
In some instances, yes. So in some instances, you'll get your client who feel they can do it by themselves using a Robo-Advice model.
Sure.
Now, these aren't necessarily cheaper. So they range from 0% overseas in cost, which is quite low. That's on very small accounts, up to well over 0.5%. So they're not necessarily cheaper than sitting in front of a real-life financial advisor. I don't think the real-life financial advisor will ever be out of the equation, but I think they will have to use Robo-Advice models in order to advise their clients.
And would these advice models maybe be unique to offshore exposure and offshore investments versus the domestic market, which, again, sometimes consumers and even advisors feel that they're more familiar with?
At the moment, yes. So at the moment, most of the Robo-Advice models you see around, like Betterment, Wealthfront, Nutmeg, they're all offshore platforms. We don't really have one that I would deem to be a good Robo-Advice model in this country yet. What we also see with some of these Robo-Advice models where they fall short is they don't have something called an asset liability model. So a simple retirement plan. You have 10 years to get to retirement, and you have X amount of rands, and you know you need to have Y amount of rands by the time you get to age 63. We don't see those sort of models incorporated into many of the Robo-Advice models. So I think there's probably a gap there, both locally and abroad.
Something you plan on working on, huh?
We already are.
Fantastic. Well, let's get your closing remarks very quickly, though, on the key takeaway points from tonight's conversation with regard to Robo-Advice and what it means for consumers like you and I. Alex, well, we've touched on very widely just some of the key elements with regard to Robo-Advice, but for the consumer, what do they need to know about these models, and even some of your colleagues in the industry, how they need to adapt to the changing times?
I think I understand that Robo-Advice is coming. It's actually already here. Locally, it's here and is really in the infancy stages, but it's coming. Second of all, keep track of what the costs of these Robo-Advice models are, not just a simple advice fee. Look at what the underlying costs are. They may not necessarily be cheaper. Investigate who holds custody of the actual assets. Do they allow you to keep your investments on the platform that you're on, or do they force you to move across to a different platform?
Why would that be a problem?
Well, switching often involves costs. So if you can stay where you are, it could very well be cheaper than moving across to a different platform. I'd say those are the key points for now, but the space is going to develop, so let's chat again soon.
Exactly. Alex, thank you so much for your time. We'll have to leave it there for today. And I take it again for those, though, in the local South African market who still are seeking financial advice. Again, humans aren't such a bad option, right?
Fantastic option.
If they're speaking to the right people. Well, that's where we leave it for Personal Finance tonight, talking about the future of financial and wealth planning and advice. That's with Alex Cook, the Chief Executive of GCI Consulting. Now, you can be sure to continue participating in this conversation and tell us your views and what you think about Robo-Advice. And if you are quite ready yet to distinguish and rather let go of your finances in the control of a robot, you can tweet us at CNBC Africa using the hashtag Finance410, or tweet myself at Gugulethu. Until next time, though, have a wonderful evening.